Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 729. I'm Tom Cagley, your host. Today, we go back to basics and answer a listener's question. Name and a bit of context change to protect all of the involved parties. We discussed why it's a rotten idea to have a functional product owner and a technical product owner. When it comes to product owners, the old adage, the more the merrier, doesn't hold. We also have an installment of Tony Timbol's To Tell a Story column. In this installment, Tony discusses how to synchronize team-level Agile with Waterfall requirements processes. This is one of those scenarios that when you run into it, you'll need to find a way to deal with it until more of the organization embraces Agile. When it comes to product owners, more the merrier isn't the right answer. A reader of the Software Process and Measurement Cast blog recently asked, "Tom, my IT department doesn't get along very well with the business. There is a lot of finger pointing and us-them thinking. The business really doesn't understand how the system works. They only care about the parts they interact with, and there's a lot that goes on behind the UI. Our system architect has really good relations with the real customers. They were in a customer-facing support group before becoming our architect. We have decided to have the system architect play the role of technical product owner and let the product management team identify a business product owner. That way we can make sure that the technical work gets properly prioritized. That's cool, right? Signed, they really don't get it." Dear, don't get it. The gulf between IT and the business has been around for as long as I've been in the workplace. In many organizations, they are still very different clans with different languages, different norms, different goals. There have been many solutions tried to address the gulf and the resultant communication problems that it creates. Some of the more interesting approaches, including embedding software teams in the business. When that became too expensive and generated all sorts of architecture nightmares, we tried consolidating IT into a single department and hiring a lot of BAs that could speak both languages. The most recent idea is the Agile approach of product ownership. There is no perfect solution, by the way. All of the solutions have worked when done well. Done well is more rare than anyone would like. I'm a fan of trying new things to reduce the gulf between the business and IT. However, experiments should address the root cause of the problem rather than patching an organizational problem. If you want to reduce the gulf between the business and technical teams, adopting a technical and business product owner will not solve the problem, but it will set it in stone. It might make things seem better for a short period of time, but is not the root cause of communication problems and will cause bigger problems later on. I know, I've done this experiment twice and didn't like the results either time. 4 of the most common problems multiple product owners can cause include: 1. One of the most common outcomes of having 2 or more product owners is multiple backlogs. Each product owner has their own list of prioritized work. Each is often secure in the belief that they have the customer's welfare in mind. In best case scenarios, the product owners negotiate how much each will contribute to the team's short-term backlog. In less than best case scenarios, that negotiation happens in real time during planning, and the team gets to watch the drama play out in public, which diminishes everyone. Albeit, if you've got popcorn, you can make a mint selling it during that fistfight. 2. Even when product owners can agree upon a consolidated backlog, which is an excellent first step, the separate POs represent different unplanned points of entry for work. Even casually, product owners can influence both the trajectory of a piece of work, that's actually what the Agile Manifesto had in mind, and influence the work that gets started. For example, I overheard a technical product owner ask a few team members whether they thought a large CRM package could accommodate a feed from a newly installed scheduling tool. The work was not on the backlog the team had recently pulled into a sprint, but the team members charged off and spent both effort doing the research and a quick test to get the technical product owner their answer. The time came from work the functional product owner had prioritized. 3. When I chatted with the technical product owner from the scenario above about the impact of their ask, I discovered the problem was caused by a difference in priorities. After a bit of hemming and hawing around, the technical product owner admitted that getting an answer to the question was a priority and that they had gotten the reaction they expected. The technical product owner had gotten something done that was not on an agreed upon priority by gaming the system. Conflicts over what is a priority of the team can come from many sources. A single product owner can act as a gate and adjudicate differing priorities. When priority conflicts impact the working of the team, thrashing and frustration is an inevitable outcome. 4. Teams need to have a clear vision or goal for what they're working toward. A clear goal is singular. Anytime a team has multiple people espousing a vision, individuals will choose sides, leading to a team going off in different directions and to confusions. Teams with multiple competing goals will fail more times than they succeed. Dear, they don't get it. The solution to your problem is not to adopt a technical product owner to compete with your functional product owner. That way, there be dragon. Next, we'll explore finding the root cause of your problem and explore possible solutions to try. Special note, I love questions. If you have an issue, shoot us an email at tomcagley@tomcagley.com or spamcastinfo@gmail.com. Send us a voice message at 01-440-668-5717. We can set up a call, discuss your issue. Tony Timbol, welcome back to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Thanks, Tom. Great to be here again.
You know, Tony, I think when this runs, heck, it might be snowing for all I know, right? That's happened before. But I think we'll be in the middle of year 16, really starting to roll toward, 17. In a couple of years, this podcast might be able to be old enough to be able to drive somewhere. Tony, today on your To Tell a Story column, I want to continue talking about your wonderful ebook, which can be found at
TonyTimbol.com.
All righty. And we've been talking through the whole understanding of Agile readiness or Agile requirements readiness. Today, Tony, this is actually a question I got the other day when I was doing a workshop at a conference. And that was, we have Waterfall and Agile coexisting or coexisting-ish. And how does one take Waterfall requirements, and which hopefully sooner or later get into user stories and things like that we can use in Agile? How do we marry the two? Or can we? Or do we just go out and taser everybody and say, you're going to do it this way?
So that's a great question. And so in the ebook, we explore his whole concept of requirements, artifacts, and the relationship with Agile requirements in the sense of features and user stories, right? And how do you really bridge that gap? And one of the things we want to do is we don't want to restrict the requirements development process in the sense that people are comfortable with a variety of different requirements artifacts, from business cases to roadmaps to journey maps to business requirements, specifications, technical specifications, release plans, you name it. There's a whole variety of items. And sometimes they break out into different classifications. You may have project-centric requirements or artifacts such as project plans and roadmaps. And now you may have product-centric ones that include technical architecture overview, personas, or wireframes and workflows. I mean, you've got, basically we've listed those in our ebook, close to 25 different types of requirements artifacts. Those artifacts work. People use those comfortably to capture their thoughts and ideas about future scope. And that's the key. The idea is future scope. Requirements are always about the future, about aspirations, about new product development, right? However, how do you convert that into ready to consume scope that an Agile team can quickly consume and then begin to stream into their Agile incremental development process? And you don't want that handoff between the development of those requirements artifacts being delayed as they hand it over to the teams, right? So there has to be a way to sort of bridge that gap. And so what we've done is we've basically said, look, the way to bridge that gap is to begin the process of chunking the ideas in those artifacts that are developed normally, right? They're developed through a waterfall process of, hey, we're going to spend time, we're going to think about it. Okay, take that time, but put a clock on it. In other words, begin to think of your requirements development process less as a waterfall process and more as an incremental delivery model process.
I mean, how do you translate that? So if I'm used to building a requirements document, a business requirements document, a BRD or a BRS or a B anything, right? If I'm used to doing that, I'm probably thinking that the weight of the document, the girth of the document is highly related to value. So breaking it down into chunks, doesn't that reduce the value? And how do I get that through my mind that breaking it into chunks is a good idea?
Great question. And so the approach that we're taking is this. Okay, so let's say you decide, we're going to do a deep dive into building a new enrollment billing system. Okay, that's great. We have to replace our legacy billing system. Okay, that's great. It's a 3-year project. Wow. It's going to cost $25 million. Okay. We have to write all the requirements. We have to replace all of the processes. There's a ton of work. There's current state workflows. There's future state workflows. There's new workflows that improve on legacy workflows that really are inefficient. Okay. You got to capture all of that down. You got a team of people that are business architects. They begin to interview people. They do discovery. That's not a problem. That process should continue because that process works. But what you do is you shift your mindset about delivering components or pieces of that process. In other words, if you decided that your BRS is going to take 6 months to develop, that's okay. But you're going to commit that out of at least within a 30-day chunk, you're going to deliver something to development to begin their journey of context understanding and early development of what's called their Agile requirements. And so how do you bridge the gap? And so the concept we've come up with is basically the epic description statement or the epic statement. So what we're saying is that, okay, look, if you're going to take 6 months to develop a BRS, that's okay. We're not going to restrict you. We're not going to challenge your expertise about your business domain. But what we're saying is that after 30 days, you should have enough that you can now, out of that narrative story that you're trying to tell about this legacy replacement system, you should be able to use this format that we've built called the epic statement, which says out of maybe 25 pages of intention or ideas, you should be able to create concise epic statements using different forms of story form, either elevator pitch, given when then form, user story form, or job story form. So there are different forms that can fit different contexts. And so your responsibility is to take maybe 25 pages and to distill those into 5 or 6 epic statements that says, hey, this stuff, the way we interpret it, these are epics that are coming out of the 25 pages of thought process or thought IP that represents where we are with the BRS. What that does is that gives to the development team these epics that begin to inform them about the shared understanding of what the business architects and the requirements people are thinking. And so it becomes an early warning system for the development teams to begin to build their understanding as well. And so it will take some discipline. It will take some intention to do that. But what that does, creates an incremental requirements delivery model that can then be synchronized with your incremental development model. And so that's how you then bridge the gap between waterfall business requirements processes and agile development processes.
So, Tony, I start with my first 25 pages of narrative, and I start chunking out the epic statements. Don't I run the risk of those not being internally consistent if I don't wait until I get the other 25 pages of narrative and the other 400 or 500 epic statements that I might want?
Right. So that's the leap of faith that the organization has to take when it says, look, the benefit of shared understanding and and helping the IT development teams become more partners in this process outweighs the potential for rework. And that's the trade-off you have to have faith in, that the benefit of shared understanding and the beginning of the process will actually improve everyone's commitment to this project or this initiative, rather than worrying about perfection and certainty. Both sides have to live with a certain level of uncertainty and a certain tolerance or appetite for potential rework. The cost of rework is less than the cost of delay.
How do I prove that to somebody? That is a leap of faith. How do I prove it?
You have to try it. You have to try it and then get feedback and have those conversations. There's no other way there. I mean, you could run a scientific experiments perhaps and run two projects side by side to do that. And I would bet a year's salary, the agile incremental development process, you incrementalize requirements development, you incrementalize agile development, they will sync up. And then all of a sudden you've got a smooth running machine where scope is continually fed to development teams. Even if it's, quote, unrefined, it gets refined in the process. But the benefits of that shared context, shared understanding is superior.
So I throw my first epic over the wall, and hopefully that isn't an over the wall thing. So yeah. I carve out my first epic statement, whatever format that I'm using for that, and I have a conversation with the team. What are they supposed to do with it other than, okay, it's an early warning. We're going to have a hurricane in 3 months from now. Do I start to work on it? What is the expectation?
So the epics, right. So the epics descriptions, they fall naturally into a backlog. So that becomes a part of the beginning of your backlog, unrefined as it is, but it becomes the beginning of your epic description. And so the conversation back and forth between the team and the business now is informed, because now the IT is going to start asking a bunch of questions. And guess what? The business is going to say, I didn't think about that. So guess what? That next set of 25 pages that you thought was so necessary to be correct and accurate is now it's actually going to become more correct and accurate, because guess what? Now you've got the input of IT into that conversation. So that's how the magic works, right? The magic of incremental software development, we've proven to work, that we're simply applying that method to requirements development. And we're just naming it incremental requirements development.
Aren't I just creating a waterfall execution where I do incremental requirements here, and then at some point stuff drops out and I might have people start to code, and that happens. Have I really created a two-pronged sort of waterfall?
No. What you've done is there's this other element involved, which is called synchronization, right? So what we've talked about is bridging the gap using the narrative technique of the epic description statement. But what happens is that this process begins to help the business understand that they actually have a requirements pipeline.
Tony, how would people continue the conversation? How would they find the ebook and all of your products?
TonyTimbol.com. You can get on our Agile Requirements Mastery newsletter. which will get you the ebook and start a conversation with me on Agile requirements readiness.
Tony, do you have TonyTimbol.com tattooed anywhere yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, yeah. Come up to Cleveland. I have a son-in-law in the business. He'd fix you up.
Sounds
Tony,
great.
Thank you. Your To Tell a Story column is fabulous. It gets me very worked up. I get very interested. I really think the listeners do too.
Thanks.
In Reread Saturday News, this week we reread Chapter 2 of Extraordinary Badass Agile Coaching, The Journey from Beginner to Mastery and Beyond. Link in the show notes, buy a copy, read along. Chapter 2, The Mindset of the Badass Agile Coach, focuses on the most important part of a coach's arsenal, their mindset. The Software Process and Measurement Cast 730 will feature our interview with Ramzi Marjaba. Ramzi and I discuss the role of the sales engineer and why this is a forgotten job path for people with deep technical acumen. Frankly, if I were earlier in my career, this is something I'd actually think about. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?